Hello again everyone, this is 56 pounds of gerbil, again with another Bloodborne PvP video. Let me tell you a joke. What do you call a broccoli man stuck in the corner? You call him fucking dead. Am I not the most clever and funniest joke teller of all time? Seriously though, the Gatling gun is a great thing to have with you to get rid of those last pixels of health that your opponents may have. And you struggle so much to hit them on those last hits because the dash is so good in this game that they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. You can't really do much. And the Gatling gun is fantastic to assist you in that those final hits that you really need to get. And so is the Phantom minigun. You know, there you see it. It's a ghost Gatling gun. If you keep the button pressed down, it'll keep doing whatever action that button should do, and that's why I wasted a bunch of bullets. So in this gank here, these two have the Ludwig's Holy Blade. I am afraid of that weapon in 2 or even 3v1s, especially in 3v1s. Because again, like I mentioned before, it can stun you for so long that you can get hit again maybe 2-3 more times depending on the weapons involved. It's a quote-unquote a true combo enabler, I guess you should call it. It's just a shitty stun lock, guys. It's a glorified stun lock. No need to call it a combo. But that's just me. You call it whatever you want. You get the point. The point is that it's a scary weapon to deal with, and you should approach it with care. You shouldn't just dash forward like you'll see me do a couple times. Because it makes people hit you more than once, and you never want to do that. So there he gets me with a food item combo. It's a parry into a R1 into a visceral. So it's not the end of the world when you get parried and you get visceral unless you get one shot. But if you survive with a little bit of health, keep attention of what's going on around you. Just make sure you're aware of your surroundings, dodge accordingly, and most important of all, do not panic. That shit will kill you instantly. You see me there using the blunderbuss not as a parry tool, but as a staggering tool. The wide cone of the pellets, see, it allows me to hit both of them, and there I get him back with the food item combo. I know it's called like a burrito or whatever the fuck, I don't know, I forgot. So I just call it a generic name. It's a food item combo, whatever. So that combo, that food item combo, it really makes you do enough visceral damage with pretty much any character. So in that regard, you don't need skill for damage with viscerals, but you know, the trade-off is that you do need to nail that combo specifically, which can be very difficult, especially in a 3v1 where they just don't want to leave you alone. So I'm keeping my promise. I'm showing different characters in this video. Just to switch it up, obviously, like I mentioned before. This right here, his name is Seth, and he is a powder keg. If this game had functional covenants or functional factions, I would be a powder keg most of the time. If you don't know anything about Bloodborne's lore, there's one thing you should know, is that there were actually different factions of hunters. They weren't just the same group doing the same thing. You know, you got the church hunters, you got the Hunter of Hunters, and then you got whatever Canehurst had going on, and then you got the powder kegs. The powder kegs are my favorite because the most creative and wacky weapons in the game were made by powder kegs. So this guy is a powder keg, and I try to reflect that in the gameplay when I use him. I just try to be crazy. I mean, he uses a Gatling gun, and there it comes again for the last hit. You see, it's a very useful tool. I highly recommend it. I'm going to keep recommending it because if you are not that great at landing parries, and you don't have to be, you don't have to feel bad if you're not good at it. I'm not good at it. Because it's not so much how good you are doing that. It has more to do with the fact that you don't really know what kind of latency issues you're going to run into. So it doesn't really matter how good or not good you are. If your opponent has like a 2-second delay registering hits, you're never going to get that parry. And why go through the trouble of it if you can just invest on a Gatling gun? I highly recommend it. Just shoot them when they have a little bit of health. You have to be smart about it, and you have to not rely on your guns at all. So if you notice something, speaking of that, you'll notice that I don't really use my guns that often unless I want to stagger them or unless I'm going for a blood vial parry. This character just happens to use the Gatling gun because, again, he's a powder keg and he's crazy. I think the powder keg motto is, if a weapon ain't got kick, it just ain't worth it. I mean, come on, guys. That is an amazing motto to have. In what is otherwise a very dark game with very dark themes and a dark setting and everything. The powder kegs are not necessarily comedy, a comic relief, but they are some form of lightheartedness in what is otherwise, again, a very dark tone of a game. So they're just fantastic. I love the powder kegs. So this is the second character I want to showcase real quick. This is Adam Hunter. He is a skill build. And I want to touch on that subject a little bit because I mentioned it in the previous video, but I want to elaborate. So people don't have characters anymore. People have a dude, a 3D model with a stat sheet, and their character is whatever stats they put. I don't like to do it that way. I've never liked to do that, even since like all the way back in the beginning of Dark Souls 1 PvP. I've always liked to have an actual character with some form of a backstory. I'm not saying you have to write it down, write a book about it, or go into a lot of detail. Like this character, for example, is just a character that is neither good or bad. He kills Gehrman because he wants to replace Gehrman, not in the dream, but as a hunter out in the field. So he is out in the field hunting other hunters, and he's doing it with Gehrman's fighting style. That's why I have the burial blade. I have also a Beast Hunter Scythe, however you want to pronounce it. So this is a very cocky character. You'll see me sometimes taunt in the middle of a fight. I'll just go crazy sometimes. And I try to be smart about it sometimes, but sometimes it just gets me killed. But this is a character, it's a good idea to have a character and reflect that character's personality and traits onto your gameplay when you're involved in the PvP. I highly recommend it because it makes for a different gameplay experience, so keep that in mind. You're going to see that I get hit with the numbing mist, and as far as the character goes, he doesn't care because he knows that he can overcome the odds with what he has learned from his experience, so he doesn't care. Normally, what I would do, the player, the guy outside of the Bloodborne world, what I would do is back off, wait for it to run out, and then I would go back and fight them. But because I'm trying to stay in character, I don't do that. I go in and I kill that guy. You're going to see a lot of one-shot with the viscerals because I have a lot of skill with this character, obviously. So he gets a parry on me, but it doesn't matter. He wouldn't have killed me anyway if he got the visceral. The dash forward R1 on the burial blade, it has a lot of range. It's really good and I recommend it. Dashing and waiting a little bit before throwing the R1 is better to catch people that dodge on reaction or they mash. Look at that fully charged R2. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about, you see? I often do like little edgy walks, very confusing things. That it gives off sort of the NPC invader feel to it, because NPCs often walk around, they do weird stuff, they don't really seem human. I try to do that. I've tried to do that ever since Dark Souls 1. It really throws people off more than you think, and in a good way. It works to your advantage. So again, I really recommend it. Just sort of make a little backstory to your character. You don't have to make a novel out of it. But it's a great and fun way to approach the PvP that isn't just, let me worry about stats, let me worry about gems and whatever. Pick your weapons according to the personality of your character, whatever backstory they may be, or they may have, I should say. So here I can hear them inside the room. I'm not a smart guy. I didn't magically predict that they would be in there. I knew they were in there and I just didn't want them to see me. Turns out they were planning to ambush me. So yeah, cool ambush, bro. That cooperator did not have a lot of health. All my weapons at this point are plus 10. This is not a level 43 character, by the way. Neither of them. This character and the powder keg, they're not 43. These are older characters that I've made before, and I left them at that level because you find action in specific parts, more higher up parts of the game, like Yahar Ghul, the Nightmares, sometimes even the DLC. But they're at plus 10, these weapons. I switched to a church pick because I was just, I don't know, I wanted to mess with this guy. But it's a plus 8 pick, I think, with no gems. And it still does pretty good damage. I don't know if I end up switching or not, but the point is I don't feel bad about using plus 10 weapons with gems. Because at this point of the game, even if you are a new player, you should have a plus 9 weapon with relatively sort of okay gems, maybe, depending if you play the Chalice Dungeons or not. And I'm talking about the normal story Chalice Dungeons that can give you pretty fine gems for what they are. You see me there getting hit again with another numbing mist, but the character doesn't care. Normally I would care. I would be like, nope, I'm gonna back off. Maybe not in this situation because it was a 1v1, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I have plus 10 weapons because at the point you reach Jahar Ghul, they give you a bunch of chunks. You can level them up to plus 9, put some gems in there, do decent damage. I invade people that have decent damage at this point, so there's no excuse. I get it. Some people don't really understand the games that well, but I mean, you can't fault me for that, you know. So anyway, this whole character thing, again, it's a great way to experience the PvP in a different way. Just keeping that character in your mind, what they would do, how they would react to certain things and such. So you don't have to go so deep and complex. I know I'm making it sound like it's a deep and complicated process, but it's not. You just basically do stuff differently than you normally would in PvP, and that's all you gotta do. And trust me, you'll get used to it. Whenever you switch characters, it'll be like a brand new experience. It's also the reason why I get motivated, and I'm always trying to make new characters and try to do different things with weapons that maybe I already used, but not in specific ways, So with the Burial Blade, I switch between the one-handed and two-handed versions constantly because it's a great idea. So guys, I don't want you to think that I'm only showcasing my victories. I get killed, but if I'm gonna show you how I get killed, I want it to be interesting like that. What the fuck happened there? He launched me out of the bridge, and I tried to reproduce that with the monocular, because if you equip the monocular and you zoom in, you dash, you don't roll, you dash. And I tried to dash against that edge, see if I could launch myself, but I couldn't reproduce it. It was so weird. So if you ever do see me get killed, I'm not going to show you just me getting R1 to death, because that's boring. I can show you that anytime. I can make a 2-hour compilation of that. I get killed all the time. But if I'm going to show you times where I die when invading, by God, they're going to be interesting. I want to show you something different that you haven't seen before. I bet you haven't seen that before. Getting launched out of the bridge like that. My God. So anyway, this character is one of my favorite characters to use because I really, really, really started to enjoy the Burial Blade. It's such a fun weapon, and it's a shame that I didn't wait, because I mean, who could have predicted? The False Depths, the Chalice Dungeons, made by Zuli the Witch. I think you can get a Burial Blade in there in this Chalice Dungeon, so you can get it really early in the game. But this character was made way before any of this brand new Bloodborne data mining stuff came out. So I had to wait until the end of the game to get this weapon. Which was no problem, really. I was probably going to play through the game anyway, so yeah. I just keep thinking that maybe nowadays I would have done it in a way that I could have beat the game, faced the PvP with the weapon, so I would have gotten used to it quicker than when I made this character. But it's fine, it works out in the end. So, one of the things, again, that you're going to see in this video, it's sort of an unintended theme. There's a lot of R1 mashing hosts and co-opers. And look, I shit on Dark Souls 3 all the time. If any of you have been keeping up with this video series, I take jabs at Dark Souls 3 all the time. This is the reality of it, okay? No jokes, no memes. This is one of the only times where I'm going to be serious about this topic. Dark Souls 3 is a great game. It's a fantastic game. I really enjoy. I like it. I just don't agree with some of the things that the PvP makes people become accustomed to. And by that I mean this. The PvP in Dark Souls 3, I think, is one of the main culprits as to why new players just become R1 mashing idiots. It's not their fault. It's just an effective thing to do in Dark Souls 3. And people that play Dark Souls 3 and then they move to Bloodborne or any other Souls games, they just think they can keep doing that over and over. Like that guy with the Chikage, you can see him right now. He's just, unga boonga. He's just going for it. So one of the legit criticisms, again, no jokes, no jokey memes, no meme edits, no nothing, no ironic shit posting, none of that. Just, I'm giving it to you straight. Like, I really do blame Dark Souls 3 for turning so many new players into idiotic R1 mashers. It's not necessarily the new player's fault, because in Dark Souls 3 they introduced the straight sword class with brand new speed, comparable to the saw cleavers in this game, and it is just so effective to use while mashing, especially if they have summons with them, which is the famous, the famous ganks that everybody hates. And I touched on that topic in a previous video where I mentioned that it's not so much the gank, it's the fact that they get 2 free hits on you. It's actually the stun lock system. So the problem is actually a mechanical problem, because in Bloodborne, how often do you see me running away? I took on these guys, it's a 2v1, I took them on in this little square, this little arena. I didn't have to run away to the PvE so that the PvE can help me. Granted, sometimes you do if they're half competent. That is true, but that's part of the invasion too, right? But when I know that I can keep up with them, when I know that I can beat them, I just fight them head on, and there's no problem. Why is that? No stun locks. But again, I already mentioned that. There's no need to revisit that topic. So again, the criticism that I do have, again, all jokes aside, is the fact that R1 mashing in Dark Souls 3 is so effective. And it's just a shame because people bring that mentality into Bloodborne and they expect it to work, and it doesn't. You've probably seen it a couple times. People are one mashing, they get parried, and they just get murdered because, they fight the wrong guy with a skill build that can just one-shot them with the viscerals. They don't know anything about that. They just know how to R1 mash because that's what Dark Souls 3 taught them. Now, I'm not saying all R1 mashers are Dark Souls 3 players. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they could be, I guess you could call it victims of the fact that Dark Souls 3 taught them to R1 mash if they have friends with them, because it's such an effective thing to do. So in part, I don't blame the players because it is an effective thing to use. I do blame the game. So if there's anything that you want to discuss about Dark Souls 3 and my thoughts on it, it's a great game, but I don't agree with a lot of what the PvP teaches people. So that's all. Again, great game. I'm not shitting on it. I just don't agree with, what it really teaches people, again. So anyway, enough about that. So we're going to continue the invasions with this character. I do eventually switch to another character. I forgot which one. But again, we see, a 2v1 in the same little arena. And you're going to keep seeing it, man. Like I said, I just discussed this R1 mashing thing, and you're going to keep seeing it. It was completely unintentional because it was only when I was putting together the clips that I noticed. I was like, hey, man, these guys are just going for it. I mean, granted, this guy has a saw cleaver. Sure, you sort of want to do it with a saw cleaver. They both have cleavers, actually. But you're so far away from me. Not even that disjointed hitbox is going to help you hit me all the way over there, man. I'm like really, really far. So whenever you encounter R1 mashers, you can deal with the R1 mashing in a variety of ways. You can hyper armor through them if you know your hyper armor attacks. You can parry them, or you can trade with them, have a little R1 mashing contest depending on the weapon that you have. And more often than not, people are going to keep mashing R1, and they're not going to take notice of how little health they have, and you're going to kill them just R1 mashing. It's a very silly thing to do, but it does work. In this case, I didn't want to get close to him because I didn't want to lock on to a R1 mashing battle because he was going to lose. And in fact, I could have switched to my Beast Hunter save? I don't know. I could have switched to that, and I could have just R1 mashed him to death with that because it's a really, really fast attacking weapon. But I wanted to do something different. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to throw in R1 and then a transformation attack, and I do get it. And I just want to kill him with transformation attacks, which with this weapon are really, really nice. You see there? And that's a lot of damage, and it does get some hyper armor. The cleaver being a smaller, quick attacking weapon, it does not destroy your hyper armor. You probably wouldn't be able to do that if it was someone hitting you with a Kirkhammer L2 or something like that. There are levels of poise in this game. They're more like a bar that needs to fill up. The more you attack with certain attacks, the more hyper armor you get. So, oh no, here he is again, the hammer dude. I think this is the only clip that I have of my hammer hunter here in this video. But nothing. I have a lot of clips with this dude, so I'm gonna sneak them in there every now and then. But believe me, I'm just gonna probably keep it in this format. You know, I'm gonna share clips of different characters. Maybe put 3 clips of one character, 2 clips of another, and just work my way through all the videos that I do have still saved up. So again, just a standard 2v1 again. We got a cleaver dude. The cleaver is a very popular weapon. You should probably get used to fighting it. Not a problem for the Kirkhammer. The Kirkhammer's hyper armor, it eats through the R1s. Some people learn the hard way when they get hit that they cannot stagger you through certain attacks. And if they don't keep, mindlessly R1 mashing, they're gonna think carefully. And ultimately, that's one of the things that I do like to do when fighting new players. I'd like to teach them things by showing them in a fight. So here, I was trying to lure him to go back because I wanted the cannon to hit him. He has no idea that there was just a huge explosion behind him again. So look at this. This is what even, my man, what even? This is not a shooter. This is not a third-person shooter, but you're gonna see this a lot. All right, a lot of new players, they love their guns. They think that the gun does something. Most players don't know anything about blood tinge builds. They don't know about the Evelyn. They don't know nothing about no bone marrow ash or nothing of that. And they're just gonna shoot you because they think it does something. They see your character stagger, like, oh my god, I got shot, and they're thinking that somehow they're making progress. They're not. So we anxiously await. There it is. Ah, so good. Anyway, guys, join me in the next video in which I will present to you a lot of evidence that finally proves that the rats in Yarnum are actually mutated hamsters. Thank you for watching.